Alright, here we are in Conquistador. This is the beginning of turn 13, the first of the turns with the big R3, tripling the resources that are available. Now, Spain got an event that gave them, or got their random events, gave them a lot of a lot of colonists, not a lot of cash. They needed to build up their navy. They kind of said to France, look, not this turn, not yet. I just had to pull my armies out. I'm not going to be able to build up a navy big enough and an army big enough and do all that at once. Let's hold off a turn. France is like, that sucks. But yeah, I'm not going to do it on my own. They are going to land a lot of forces here, but their intention is to head towards Cusco. See if they can grab that. See if they can haul goods down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's a special exemption to the normal 8 hex zone that allows you to haul gold to Rio del Plata, and hey, they own that. They're in the best position to take it. Only England has any possible, and like I said, I may be cheating with this, but I'm assuming that you could haul it off the coast of the Inca Empire. However, this mountain range running up the coast line means that there is nothing within 8 hexes of movement of Cusco. But yeah, if you can coast it that way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alternatively, you could haul it through Panama, but then you'd have to do all naval movement with a shift over in Panama. Whatever. Anyway, so France and Spain agreed, okay, we'll hold off a turn. Even though France didn't have a lot of colonists, had a lot of money, and built a big, was going to build a big army. They also had an explorer, so they could do a landing, say, up in northern Brazil and hit both sides of Brazil, or up here in Nicaragua, although that is less tempting. What they really want is Brazil. Britain, however, didn't like the sound of France and Spain talking. They didn't like Spain's reaction to losing their explorer. So they're launching a full-on body blow against the Spanish Caribbean, which has very few troops available and could well be wiped out by this. Of course, there is a big Spanish fleet that just got built this time, landing here, and the Spanish could change their mind about what they're doing. Likewise, France has a huge army. They could all turn on a dime and start fighting this war. And it's beginning to look like that will be the case. It's just the two players were not fully planning for this. Portugal? Yeah, they're not doing anything. They actually got a decent amount of money and could probably land these colonists. But a decent amount means $35. They'd rather hold up and start hoarding some cash and maybe jump in later in the game, if they can, with a naval invasion somewhere. Looks really unlikely for them to get anywhere, though. Alright, well, on to seeing what happens in the naval, and, well, we may actually play out this naval invasion, because we haven't seen one before. Something I didn't know after looking up the rules for it, I see. When you do a naval invasion, you get to add a point for each carrack, or whatever the big ships are. I can never remember which is which. Yeah, the carracks are the big ships. For each one of them, they get to add 1 strength point for their bombardment. They're not going to be a major factor here. And the defenders doubled, but it helps a little bit, I guess. Well, after the hemispheric movement, which is, or the transoceanic movement, which I essentially put on the board within my planning stage because of the way I do this solo, we have the attack going on here, and this is going to take 3 of my movement points to land here. Now, I have 1640 strength points, 45 strength points against 4 doubled is 8. That's going to be over 5 to 1. That's the highest it goes on there. So I just roll on the regular land combat table there. And with a 5, I'm going to be taking some hits. I take a quarter of the total armies involved. The defender is going to take 3/4, which is going to wipe the defender out. There's 10 armies. 10 divided by 4 means I'm going to lose 3 British armies. That's a pretty big expenditure for this. And That's why you don't want to hit hard, right? But you could get one of these that doesn't affect you. And the Spaniards are wiped out. Now I have the option to load onto the boat after that, which I will do because I have no colonists with me. Everybody can go on. Anybody can go on. It's your choice. So I spent 3 movement points. Now this is 5 bounds, 3 of them to return home. I spent 3 movement points for that. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I can hit their navy. Which, is that the better move? I think I would rather wipe that out than this. This is going to be 8 doubled 16 strength points. I'm going to hit their navy because I think it hurts them more. So I sail in here and we'll see what we have. 24, 32, 40, 64, 68 strength points. Let me mark that down. And for the Spaniards, we have 32, 36. Wow, I'm not going to have 2 to 1 there. I'm not going to hit that. I'm going to go chase their army instead. Now I cannot hit this port because the Navy's there right now. If I had hit the Navy, I could have hit the port too. So here I have 28, 29, 30, 33 strength points to 16. That only gives me 2 to 1, but I want to hit something. So we'll do that. And that was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Still have a few movement points left, but nothing much to do with them. 2 to 1, 3. It's attacker a quarter, defender a half. Alright, how many armies are there? There's 1. There's 8. A quarter means I'm going to lose 2 armies. For the English. And a half means I have to lose 4 armies for the Spanish. I'm going to take their army first because that's the least valuable, but then these 2 are worth less and we'll kill that missionary. I don't know if he's supposed to die or not. And again, I could leave the troops, but I can't form a port there, so I want to keep the troops in place. What do I want to do with those troops is my question. I've spent 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I can't land them there. I'm going to bring them home somewhere. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. They have to go home, but, well, they're in a port so they could disembark just by sitting there, essentially. I don't know how that works. I've been spending to land anything I bring to the port, no matter what, whether I do extra naval movement or not. And I don't think that really works that way because I'm in that port defending it. Alright, well that's the English. Now the French get to go. Not a lot they can do, but they are prepared to launch their attack against the English at this point. The war's on, as far as they're concerned. Going for Cusco does not make a lot of sense. Do they want to just leave the Spanish to their fate? No. They think the English probably have a good chance of doing something. And by grabbing this territory, as much of it as they can, they're doing more harm to the British. They really feel like they have to take them down. The English right now are their big competitor in terms of cash holdings. And the Spanish are more of a tempting target because they have this gold coming down. So the French think they can kind of get away with it. Just to show, first of all, this 5, I used up 2 of those, so now I've got 3 left, which is what I was supposed to. But I spent 3 to get in there and 2 more. So now I make my naval attrition roll. And that roll is safe. Since I'm showing so many little tactical things, here with the French, I unloaded here for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That allows me to go to here. Now this isn't a port, but I'm allowed to be there. I've spent 5 to get in here. I had 5 left over for the return trip, but doing the drop-off doesn't work that way. And this is my, I'm not sure how that this is supposed to work this way. But now I've got 4 for the return trip, which is what I need to get back from there. Of course, I have to roll on the 6 table going in, which is painful. You'd rather roll both the other way. But I've been charging no matter what if you're depositing troops. So, well, that 6 was kind of unable to be avoided, and I'm going to lose a colonist and a soldier out of what I brought in. And at this point, we actually see why the English had to fight. But before we get to that in a moment, they're marching up on Tenochtitlan. That's going to put some real pressure on the Spanish gold routes coming down, as well their threat here. Now, galleons can only do so much. They can't protect you from a land army, and they can't transport land units. So that puts a tricky kind of pain in the hands of the Spaniards. With 4 or 5, I've got to make it back to a port. All I've got is 3, 4, 5, 10 I could carry. Well, I could deliver most of that over here. I lost the port here. Just starvation. And have a secondary striking force kept in this area, as well as building another one up over in England. So that's probably a more optimal choice at this point, especially since I start to get sea dogs. Yeah, you can't quite reach them on a cord here. I get my first one, which is what? Yeah, we can't really see that, can we? Hawkins. Alright. Yeah. Getting Hawkins next turn now. I don't think he can work against the galleons though. Alright, so here's why it's important that England fought. They brought in very little money. They didn't get hit at all by their colonists. They didn't lose colonists particularly, although they lost a couple here and there due to attrition. 246 ducats brought in by the Spaniards. That's after losing 2 of their colonies. 210 brought in by the French. The English brought, I don't remember what, but around 100 and something. They're just way behind the curve at this point. There's so much established by these other countries that they had to strike. There's a point in this game, and this is about it, where you have to hit somebody. Well, unfortunately for them, the French were prepared to hit them at the same time. So they took the opportunity and struck north here. And they didn't really do any damage, but they're scaring the English, and the English are just going to have to keep running northward in Brazil. Alright, I'll pay the maintenance fees. Now, obviously, a lot of that money goes back in because of maintenance fees, but that ×3 multiplier up there, that's the key to why the income went up so much, because you're looking at ×6 in the rich areas, right? And as we push into turn 14, I'll put my dice up there to remind me, the income is really telling. France is up to over 500, Spain 400, now England's down around 300. And you can see the tens digits aren't terribly separated either. So it looks like England's going to lose this war if they can't convince one of the two to kind of break, because they can't face 2 more powerful enemies. They were hoping hitting Spain, France would come in on them, would help. And maybe they will. Maybe they will. Maybe they can cut a deal after they lose Brazil. Hey, France, look, I'm not going to win this, but if we take Spain down together, well, then you'll get the advantage. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. One thing about this game that kind of disturbs me is, historically, these great wars in the colonial area, they didn't happen. Not before 1600. This is warfare of a type that really wasn't practiced in the colonies until the 18th century. this kind of broad strokes to try to capture large amounts of territory, and maybe never to the extent that it is in this game. And it is kind of a disturbing fact. Is it always play out this way? Well, what I find is that usually when I've played it with other players, it doesn't, because everybody's busy building their own nest. But I think a large part of that is because they aren't aware of the rules and how to sort of manipulate the game and what you're really going for and how much you do want to, how much it really does, the victory conditions really do favor the person who gets that strike in. Anyway, that's okay. Most of my experiences opposed have been pretty historical. Most of my experiences solitaire have been too, because usually I don't want to bother with war. But, well, if you were playing this to win, this is the kind of actions you would take, I think. Oh boy. First of all, some additional explorers for the French. They have a lot that die on turn 14. The English get good old Hawkins, our Sea Dog. Now, rolls were not terribly, well, the French and English got the cool roll, which is lots of money and not a lot of colonists. When you're in war, you probably don't want to be shipping a lot of colonists around. It's cool to send a couple in. They can sometimes help you. They can establish a port somewhere important. But for the most part, what you really want to be doing is moving soldiers, and that's where you want to be spending your shipping power. Spain got a huge amount of colonists, which they may not be able to really afford to move, but maybe they will. Who knows? You can never tell how those things play out and what they choose to do, because colonists are very, very valuable at this point in terms of generating cash. The problem is a big pile of soldiers is also really useful. Portugal got a ton of colonists, which sucks. They also got the middle class bonus, which gave them some decent money, but they have nowhere they can go. I mean, until they get a decent amount of money, a real big amount, they can't land somewhere. They can only land in a port, and they can only hit it hard. Now, if there were some place, the French, they could hit the French. If the English were somewhere where they were weak, the Portuguese could go in there, knock them out of there, and get something. But they aren't really. They're only weak here, really. And that's not that weak. Spain got hit by a bad event, plague in the colonies. That meant they lost essentially 5 colonists. They had to lose a colonist or a soldier from 5 of their stacks. And the only soldiers that they thought they could lose out of any of them were up here, and they only have 1 here channeling the gold. So they really do need all their soldiers that they have in place. So their production is going to be cut back by the loss of those colonists, but it would be cut back further if they had no military to defend them. All right, big money spent. Both the English and Spanish spent more than $120 on what they're doing. Now, where are the landings? Where are the actions? First, French are now the first player, Spanish second, English are down to third. Everybody's got an A monarch except the Portuguese, and the French had the most money. French plan, hit Brazil with a big force. They're going to come from the north, basically squish it, destroy the Brits, open up their options. If the Brits are interested in some kind of deal, well, I want Brazil first before we talk any further. Because it is quite possible that it is Spain versus France already at this point, and if that's the case, well, tilting things and attacking Spain might make sense. Over to Spain, what do? Well, they send a galleon fleet over here. They're going to be able to ship stuff down here, then land ferry it to here, and maybe get it out. That galleon also protects this in case a naval invasion is done, but that was pretty low likelihood. Spanish are landing here, plans to pull the gold out of there, dispatch some more troops here, which they might be able to get down into the Aztec Empire, because they go earlier than the English do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Helps defend it. Now, who's next? Next is the English. And they've got a big army that they're planning on spending 4 bounds for hemispheric movement, or maybe to go back with something. But right now their intention was to ship this down here and get it into Brazil and defend Brazil. But now, with that landing, Brazil looks a lot more impossible to hold. The French have some 12, 13 armies right in Brazil after that landing. That's going to be ugly. So they may end up shifting it elsewhere, which was one of their considerations. And another fleet, this time under Hawkins, with a huge 8 carracks, some 14 armies, and a little portable port. All right, we'll see what the naval actions do. Drake's huge navy made it impossible for the Spanish to stick around here, so they fled under protection of the galleon fleet here. That means that they can't be hunted, which is kind of cool. And one of the few protections there, I believe. Let me check the rules to make sure that they cannot. No, they're specifically excluded from doing that. So, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to sit outside this port. It's not optimal, but I really have no other option. There's nothing I can make safe, and I really don't want to tempt him further this way. If he attacks in the deep south, that allows the French to help out, maybe. I don't know. Well, what the English did was kind of tricky. Drake came in, hit this navy here. He took 3 of the ships. Those are prizes now. They're in his fleet. Now, he had to have land units to handle it. He couldn't land here, though. Rather than landing here, he sailed over to drop his troops here. The second fleet launched, attacked this hex, destroyed it, got back on their ships, sailed over, and joined here. The plan is to take the Mexican territories, where the gold is right now. 75 gold kicking around there. They may or may not be able to seize that, but their feeling is they might be able to hold France to a standstill in Brazil, but they're not going to be able to defeat France there very easily. And it's going to weaken their chance of beating the Spaniards and grabbing the gold. And perhaps the most important of all, if they give up Brazil, they no longer have a necessary beef with the French, and they might actually be able to get the French to come in on their side against the more likely winner of the game. The French end up taking out whatever military presence the English have, but they still do have their colonists here. Those are going to die too, but for the Spaniards, they ferried all their troops here, and it looks like the English have at best a 1-to-1 attack. They may have to make it. There's a huge quantity of gold sitting there that makes it incredibly tempting, and I don't think England has a chance if they can't take Spain out here. It just looks too ugly. Losing Brazil, Spain already at this power, if they shift that money home, I think it's all over. And I think that's the problem here. If you don't seize that gold, it's 125. It's probably not enough to swing the game, but if it's not, nothing is. There's another 175 sitting up here that and an abandoned mine that they could bring into process that the Spaniards could bring down if this doesn't fall. So I don't know how many real options the English have here. They're going to probably have to take a risk at this. 1-to-1 combats aren't necessarily bad. The English had a lot more troops there. They lost a lot, but both sides lost half the total number of forces. That wiped the Spaniards out. It left the English with 2 army units. Now, here's the problem. They can't get that money to their port. They're stopped here. And where they are is where the Spanish galleons are. Those galleons can go home still, but the Spanish aren't going to get the money. The English army holds it. The English can't do anything with the money. They're going to be trying to run with the hot potato. Okay, that's the end of 14. And here we really do see England's in a position, and Spain is in a position, where they've both been hammered so hard that their only chance to win would be to combine against France. And that's the question for next turn. Do England and Spain bury the hatchet in France's head? But here we definitely do see the problem with this game, historically wise. If you are playing it out, and playing balance of power type politics. In most games that allow this kind of diplomacy, it's pretty much going to happen, right? The only reason it doesn't here is that sort of, I'm here with my little economic engine and maybe I'll leave, maybe it'll be him and the other guy that fight. Well, eventually it does break down, I think. And in this case, you're going to see 40 years of warfare. It ain't going to stop. I'm serious. Once that balance of power war starts, I don't see any way that it stops. Part of it's because it's a three-sided game. One person getting basically knocked out early. I think that had a big effect on it. All right, but the game is meant to be three-player. The original. We're going to load this one up, and, well, we're not going to finish it tomorrow, but in the next couple days. And then we can get to Ancient Battles Deluxe again.